My brother-in-law tried to act like he was running the house while my husband was deployed. I made sure he understood his boundaries. Ryan left for his third deployment 6 months ago, 12-month tour. Before he left, his mother, Helen, called. Derek needs a place to stay. His divorce is messy. Since Ryan won't be there, Derek can help with the house. A man around the house was supposed to make things safer, according to Helen. I didn't need safety. I'm a former Marine, 2-tour in Afghanistan before I left the service to start our family. But Helen insisted, and Ryan didn't want to argue with his mom, so Derek moved into the garage apartment a week after Ryan deployed. The first week was fine. He stayed out of the way, went to work, came home late, then he started inserting himself. The trash goes out Tuesday night, not Wednesday morning, he declared, dragging the cans out. Ryan always took them out at night. I prefer mornings, I told him. He moved them anyway. Next was the lawn. I had a lawn service while Ryan was gone. Derek canceled it. Waste of money. I'll handle it. He only mowed when he felt like it, letting the grass get so bad the HOA started sending warnings. You're making Ryan look irresponsible, he scolded, as if he wasn't the reason for the notices. Then groceries. I'd come home to find my fridge rearranged. Vegetables go in the crisper, not on the shelf, he'd say, and why are you buying name brand? Store brand is cheaper. Ryan wouldn't waste money like this. Then came the mail. He started collecting it, opening anything that looked official. Just making sure nothing important gets missed, he said. You know how women can be with finances. An accountant who manages $3 million in assets, but apparently I needed Derek to explain a utility bill 2 months in. Things escalated. I walked in and found him in Ryan's office on Ryan's computer, just organizing files. Ryan asked me to keep an eye on things. Absolutely did not. I called Ryan that night on video, told him everything. He was furious but stuck overseas. I'll talk to him, he promised, but Derek didn't have international calling, so Ryan called Helen instead. She called me. Be difficult. Derek is helping you. A woman alone needs guidance. Ryan would want his brother protecting you. Protecting, that's what she called it. By month 3, our neighbor Joan pulled me aside. Your brother-in-law is very dedicated. At the block party, he said he's basically running 2 households now because you're struggling without Ryan. I hadn't even been invited to the block party. Derek went alone, as the man of the house. By month 4, I learned he was telling worse things. My friend Razah, who works with him, warned me. He's saying you cry yourself to sleep and can't handle money. He tells everyone you'd have lost the house if he hadn't moved in. And he's hinting you're getting too attached to him, that he has to be careful not to lead you on. I wanted to destroy him right then, but I waited. Patience matters. Month 5, he crossed the final line. I came home to see a locksmith changing the locks on my house, not the garage apartment, the house. What are you doing? Upgrading security, he said. As the man in charge while Ryan's gone, I need full access. Don't worry, I'll give you a key. Give me a key to my own home. The locksmith looked uneasy. Ma'am, is this your property? Yes, and he's a tenant. He has zero authority here, Derek laughed. I'm not a tenant, I'm family, I'm the acting head of household. Perfect, I thought. Great, then you won't mind the household meeting I set for tonight. He looked confused but shrugged. Whatever makes you feel included. That evening I invited Helen, Ryan's other brother Paul, his sister Lisa, and yes, Derek's ex-wife Tanya. We had become friends. Derek had no idea everyone gathered in the living room. Derek sat in Ryan's chair like he owned it. Thanks for coming, I began. I wanted to go over how things have been handled while Ryan is deployed. Helen nodded. Good. Derek has been doing so much. He has, I said, and I think everyone deserves to see exactly what he's been doing. I opened my laptop and connected it to the TV. The first slide appeared. A spreadsheet of dates, times, and incidents, columns labeled, date, violation, evidence, impact, the garbage incident from week 2. A photo with a timestamp. Derek's name on every line. His smirk faded as he read. I switched to the next slide. Screenshots of his text to neighbors claiming I was unstable, emotional, incapable. All lies, all documented. Helen inhaled sharply. I clicked again. Ring doorbell footage filled the screen. Timestamp. Derek walked to my porch, looked around, and opened my mailbox. He pulled out a stack of letters and flipped through them. 3 envelopes disappeared into his jacket pocket. The rest he carried inside. The next clip showed him coming back out about 20 minutes later. He walked straight to the recycling bin and dropped something in. I had retrieved those tossed letters later. 2 were from my bank. One was a personal letter from my sister, all addressed to me. All opened by Derek. Paul leaned forward, his jaw clenching as he watched his brother casually steal my mail. Lisa quietly lifted her phone and started typing. Tanya, who'd been silently observing from near the window, finally spoke. She'd seen every bit of this before. She told the room Derek used to do the same things during their marriage, opening her mail, even letters from her family, reorganizing the kitchen and then yelling when she couldn't find anything, canceling her gym membership and telling people she wasted money, controlling every decision by insisting he knew better. When she tried to assert herself, he'd run to her family claiming she was being dramatic and unreasonable. The pattern was identical. I clicked to the next slide. Emails appeared. The cancellation of the lawn service, sent from my account. Derek had used my computer while I was at work. The date was 3 weeks after Ryan deployed. Below that were the HOA violation notices, 4 warnings in 2 months about the grass being too long. Each letter addressed to me as the homeowner. Photos lined the bottom, the lawn at different stages of being overgrown. The last image showed Derek mowing only the front yard, while the back was a jungle. Lisa kept typing on her phone, her lawyer brain itemizing everything. The lawn service cost $120 a month. The HOA fines totaled $350. He'd created the problem, then blamed it on me. The next slide showed text messages between Derek and his coworkers. Riza had sent them. She'd been disturbed enough to forward everything. The messages were explicit. Derek bragged that he was teaching me my place. Another message said he was showing me what a real man does. A third said women can't manage anything without proper guidance. He even told people Ryan asked him to straighten me out while he was deployed. A complete invention. Helen's face drained of color as she read her son's words. Her hand went to her mouth. This wasn't help. It was a calculated effort to undermine me inside my own home. I moved to the next slide. Joan's written statement about last month's block party. Derek had introduced himself as the man of the house. He told neighbors I was struggling emotionally, having breakdowns at night, and that he had to take over the bills because I couldn't manage them. Joan wrote that she found this odd, because she saw me leaving for work every morning looking perfectly fine and put together. She also noted I was never invited to the neighborhood events Derek attended alone. Paul turned toward Derek. Did you actually say that? Derek opened his mouth, but no sound came. The silence was its own confession. The confidence he'd worn at the start of the meeting had evaporated. He slumped in Ryan's chair, staring at the floor. Tanya added more context. She explained Derek had done the same to her, feeding lies to her family until they questioned her stability. It was classic isolation and control. She had documentation from their separation because her lawyer needed it. She recognized immediately what he had been doing to me. Next, I showed the financial summary. Every bill during Ryan's deployment, mortgage, utilities, insurance, taxes, all paid on time. Account balances, steady savings, increased by $800 per month under my management. My financial handling wasn't just fine. It was excellent. Yet Derek had been telling his coworkers I was mismanaging everything. He'd said he was covering for my emotional spending and forgetfulness. Riza heard him claim he was practically supporting me financially. All lies. All disproven by what was on the screen. Helen tried to jump in. Derek was only trying to help. Maybe he went about it the wrong way, but his intentions— Lisa cut her off sharply. Intentions don't excuse lying to the entire neighborhood. It doesn't excuse trying to take control of someone else's home, Lisa said. Intent doesn't matter when the actions cause real harm. She motioned toward the screen. This wasn't help, it was manipulation. The last evidence was the security footage from earlier that day. The video showed Derek standing with the locksmith at my front door, telling him to change the locks on the main house. The audio was clear. Derek claimed he was the acting head of household and said I had approved the work. The locksmith asked if I knew. Derek lied and said yes. The clip ended with my confrontation and Derek insisting he had authority because he was family. The room went silent. Paul stared at Derek. What were you thinking? Trying to lock her out of her own house? Derek stammered something about security upgrades, but Paul cut him off. Upgrades don't involve removing the homeowner's access. That's called locking someone out. He asked Derek what emergency required him to have keys to everything. Derek had no answer. Then Tanya spoke. Calm, steady, she said Derek tried the same thing during their divorce. He attempted to change the locks to force her out. She had to get a restraining order. That's why he needed a place to stay. He wasn't allowed back in their home. Helen looked shaken. She asked him if it was true. Derek insisted Tanya was twisting things, but Tanya said it was the same pattern. Derek trying to control the space around him, taking over physically when he felt threatened. Helen tried one more time to defend him. He meant well, but Lisa shut it down. Meaning well doesn't justify lying to neighbors or trying to control her property, she said. This is deliberate control and manipulation. Helen went quiet. I clicked to the next slide. Statements Derek made to different people. A coworker said Derek claimed I was getting attached. A neighbor said he implied I was too dependent. Someone at the gym said Derek described me as grateful to the point of awkwardness. The room reacted instantly. Paul actually laughed. Seriously, a former Marine with a stable life is supposedly chasing after a divorced guy living in her garage. The absurdity hit everyone at once. Tanya nodded. She said Derek used the same tactic on her, hinting other women were interested, making her insecure, keeping her off balance. It was a control method. The final clip was an audio recording from that afternoon. The locksmith asked if the homeowner knew about the lock change. Derek's reply was crystal clear. Ryan left me in charge. The recording, Derek told the locksmith I was struggling with authority, and that was why he needed keys to everything. The locksmith sounded uneasy and asked again if I'd approved the lock changes. Derek lied, saying yes. When the locksmith said he preferred confirmation from the homeowner, Derek snapped that being family should be enough. The audio ended, and Helen looked like she'd been hit. She wasn't defending him anymore. She admitted she knew Derek could be controlling, but hadn't realized how deliberate and extensive his behavior truly was. Lisa stepped in, her voice calm but sharp. She said Derek's actions counted as harassment, overstepping authority, and possibly illegal interference with my property. She said she was also concerned about the family dynamics that allowed this situation to happen, and she looked straight at Helen. Paul turned to Derek. He laid it out clearly. Derek lied to their mother, gained access to my home, and then tried to take control while Ryan was deployed and unable to protect his household. Derek tried to claim he was being a good brother, but Paul shut that down fast. He said Ryan wanted his home respected, not taken over. I addressed Helen directly. I explained how her pressure had pushed Ryan into agreeing to let Derek stay. She had believed Derek would support me. Instead, he used that access to undermine me piece by piece. Helen looked shaken. She finally understood her role in creating the situation. Tanya leaned forward and told Helen she had tried to warn the family during their divorce. Derek had the exact same controlling patterns. Helen had brushed it off as bitterness. Now she could no longer deny it. Helen's eyes filled with tears. She apologized sincerely and admitted she was wrong. She'd put Derek's comfort above respecting my home, and she'd assumed a man should naturally take charge. She understood now how damaging that assumption was. Lisa then asked Derek what he thought he was achieving by spreading lies and trying to control my life. Derek finally spoke. He said his divorce made him feel like a failure and he wanted to feel important again. Trying to help me made him feel needed. Paul didn't let him hide behind that excuse. He said Derek using Ryan's deployment as an opportunity to assert control was a betrayal, not just of me, but of Ryan. The room went quiet. Then I made it simple. Derek had to be out of the garage apartment by the end of the week. Once he was gone, I'd be changing every lock and every security code. No one would have access to my property without my permission. Helen didn't object. She just nodded. Tanya offered to help Derek find somewhere else to stay, and made it clear she wanted to ensure he actually left. With Derek, she said, you had to follow through completely or he'd find a way back in. Lisa offered to write a formal move-out agreement so Derek couldn't claim any extra time. Paul agreed to help him move and make sure there were no delays. The family finally started taking real responsibility for the mess they had allowed. Helen asked if she could fix the damage he caused by correcting the lies he told the neighbors. I told her I'd handle my own reputation. What I needed from her was to stop excusing his behavior. She agreed and said she would stop enabling him. Derek tried to defend himself again, insisting he'd only been helping and that I was overreacting. Everyone shut that down immediately. Paul looked disappointed. Lisa laughed at the excuse. Tanya recognized the pattern, and Helen looked ashamed. No one believed he had been offering real support. Tanya reminded him he used the same words during their marriage, when he controlled her accounts, opened her mail, and told people she was too emotional. She forced him to admit it was never about helping. It was about control, and that he would keep doing this to every woman unless stopped. I added that if he truly wanted to help, he could have simply asked what I needed. Instead, he assumed I couldn't manage my own life and acted like I needed male supervision. That revealed exactly how he saw women. Paul jumped in and pointed out Derrick never once checked on me or asked if I was okay. He just took over. That wasn't support, it was a power grab, especially disgraceful while Ryan was overseas serving the country. Helen then admitted her part in this. She told him she'd encouraged the idea that a woman alone needs guidance, and she now saw how that belief fed his behavior. Lisa gently pressed her to think about why male authority felt more natural to her than respecting a woman's competence. Helen didn't argue. She seemed to finally understand the meeting wound down. I repeated the final terms. Derrick would be out by the end of the week, and I would change all locks and security codes afterward. No one would have access to my home without my permission. Helen agreed and promised not to push living arrangements again Tanya, and I exchanged numbers to stay in touch and make sure Derrick actually left. Paul and Lisa hugged me before leaving. Afterward, I planned to document everything in the garage apartment with photos and notes, so any damage or missing items would be clearly recorded. I didn't want any confusion once he moved out. Derrick tried one last tactic. He said telling Ryan would stress him during deployment, and that we should keep everything quiet. I told him plainly that Ryan deserved to know what happened in his home while he was serving. I wasn't going to lie or protect Derrick's reputation. After that, he left, and I locked the door behind him. The next morning, I called the neighbors. I explained that Derrick was just a temporary tenant, not someone running my household. I corrected his stories about me struggling. Most neighbors apologized and admitted his claims never matched what they'd actually seen. They promised to spread the truth around 10 o'clock. Valeria arrived with new locks and security cameras. We replaced the garage apartment locks immediately and installed cameras covering every entry point, doors, windows, driveway, and backyard. By the time we finished, I had complete security and only my keys worked. Derrick no longer had access to anything. The next morning, I watched him pack his things into his truck. Paul came later to help with the furniture. By late afternoon, Derrick was gone for good. Paul told me Derrick spent the entire drive complaining that he had only tried to help. But Paul shut that down and said the family wouldn't enable him anymore. The following week, I scheduled a video call with Ryan through official channels. When the call finally connected, I explained everything, every escalation from the garbage cans to the locksmith. I showed him video clips, screenshots, and neighbor statements. Ryan was furious. He apologized for not pushing back harder against his mother's pressure and said he hadn't realized his family would undermine me like that. I told him it was handled, but we needed clearer boundaries going forward. Ryan agreed immediately. He said he was done letting his mother's traditional views control our household decisions. We were equal partners, and his family would have to respect that, or lose access to us. Ryan's voice during our call made it clear he fully meant what he said. We used the rest of our time to plan how to handle his family once he returned. He wanted to speak to his mother before coming home, and I agreed. A few days later, Helen called me saying she and Ryan had talked. She sounded shaken. Ryan had firmly told her she needed to respect our marriage and treat me as an equal partner. Helen admitted she needed to rethink her beliefs about gender roles. Over the next few weeks, I focused on reclaiming my home and routine. Without Derrick rearranging things or undermining me, the house finally felt peaceful. Small details, groceries staying where I placed them, the trash schedule staying normal, the lawn service doing their work, reminded me how much mental stress I'd been carrying. My sleep improved, my focus returned, and the space felt like mine again. Joan invited me to a neighborhood coffee gathering so people could hear my side directly. The neighbors apologized for believing Derrick without question. Many admitted they'd found it odd that he always spoke for me. By the end, everyone understood he was just a temporary tenant who severely overstepped, not someone helping me through a crisis. Tanya and I met for lunch the next week. She shared more about her marriage to Derrick and how his controlling behavior always escalated when he felt powerless in other areas of his life. Hearing her explain his patterns helped me realize his behavior wasn't about me personally. It was about his own need for control whenever he felt inadequate.